3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff.
There was no reason to expect any trouble. The shuttles, like Challenger, could be and often were delayed. After 24 missions and today with number 25 underway, Americans had come to expect nothing but success. And a school teacher from New England aboard gave this mission a measure of added appeal. Thus, the staggering shock that something could and did go horribly wrong suddenly, a minute and 12 seconds into the flight. A launch timetable comparison with a mission from last October indicates the explosion came some 50 seconds before the rocket boosters were to separate from the shuttle. NASA, for now, can only speculate on what went wrong.
It will take all the data, careful review of that data, before we can draw any conclusions on this national tragedy.
Also speculating for Eyewitness News, science expert and president of the National Space Institute, Ben Bova.
We don't know why it happened yet, but it looks as if there was a burn through on the main fuel tank. If you see the slow motion, you see the bright areas now, and then the explosion. That main fuel tank is holding liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen at temperatures hundreds of degrees below zero. There should be no flame coming from it. Something happened to burn through that structure and ignite those fuels and cause an explosion.
Bova says further the handling of Challenger's ice buildup before the launch might have been a factor. 2 congressmen have been on shuttle missions. Their comments.
It's been a very difficult day for me personally because I knew each of them. I trained with some of them, and I just extend my love and condolences to their families.
This system is not without risk, and everyone who climbs on one of those loaded spaceships understands that risk.
President Reagan cancels future shuttle missions until the cause of the explosion is found. He addresses the nation.
The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger honored us for the manner in which they lived their lives. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
It had been a happy and confident crew that climbed aboard Challenger this morning just after breakfast. They had overcome their frustrations at repeated delays and looked forward to nothing less than a great success.
Good evening, everyone. The search for what's left of the Space Shuttle Challenger is over for the night off the coast of Florida, called off until tomorrow morning.
There is no evidence and no longer any possible chance the crew survived. President Reagan was to have addressed the Congress and the nation tonight on the State of the Union. Because of the shuttle tragedy, he has postponed that address to next Tuesday night. Mr. Reagan has ordered Vice President Bush to oversee the investigation into the cause of the shuttle explosion, dispatching Mr. Bush to Florida. The president has also telegrammed Governor O'Neill and other governors a request to fly their flags at half-staff in tribute to the Challenger crew. Marlene?
Well, Don, the reason this shuttle mission was so special was the fact that Christa McAuliffe was riding along. It was good public relations for NASA to show the country that space shuttle travel was for anyone, for everyone. It drummed up our interest and it helped generate more federal funding for NASA.
Today I'm directing NASA to begin a search in all of our elementary and secondary schools and to choose as the first citizen passenger in the history of our space program one of America's finest, a teacher.
Teachers all across the country were eager to give it a try. 11,000 applied, and after a long selection process, one was chosen.
The winner, the teacher who will be going into space, Christa McAuliffe.
It was then that we got to know Christa McAuliffe. She grew up in Framingham, Massachusetts. She went to high school and college there. Her parents still live there. She got married, and she then moved to Concord, New Hampshire. Life there had been comfortable. Christa was a wife, mother of 2 small children, and a teacher. But now she was to be an astronaut, and life changed for her family.
Whatever the price in terms of readjustments or my taking on things that I probably should have been doing before anyway and hadn't done, whatever those prices are, they certainly pale in comparison to the opportunity.
Her first opportunity came last summer when she watched her first shuttle launch, happily thinking what it would be like for her.
The whole thing is so gorgeous. You just want to bring it all back into the classroom for the kids.
Then today it was Christa's turn. The Challenger, twice delayed, finally lifted off. But no more than 2 minutes into the air, the unthinkable happened. And Christa's parents watched from the ground, not sure of what they were seeing, hoping it was not what they feared. In a few short, fiery seconds, the lives of 7 people were snuffed out, incinerated in a massive ball of fire. Others killed on board the Challenger today: Shuttle Commander Dick Scobie, Shuttle Pilot Michael Smith, the other woman on board, Shuttle Mission Specialist Judith Resnick, another mission specialist, Ellison Anazuko from Hawaii, the payload specialist, Gregory Jarvis, who was to handle the communication satellites, and a man with close ties to Connecticut, 35-year-old mission specialist Ronald McNair. McNair has family in Hartford's North End, and he visited this area very often, making friends who are still in shock tonight. Well, those friends of Ronald McNair's are remembering him tonight, his dream of becoming an astronaut, how hard he worked to make that dream come true, especially while studying at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Channel 3's Michael Hill talked to Connecticut friends and relatives of both Christa McAuliffe and Ron McNair.
UConn's Dean of Engineering, Dr. Wesley Harris, met 35-year-old Ronald McNair at MIT in Boston. Dr. Harris was a professor there. He remembers McNair, the student.
Ron McNair was a very serious student. His characteristics that I think stand out most was his intensity. He was a professional in every sense of the word, always dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
In Hartford, McNair's family and his #1 fan, Uncle Jerry McNair, watched the liftoff with joy and the explosion in awe.
It's a hurting thing, you know. We was awful close. He went to school and he graduated at the head of his class at MIT. So when he come down here and told me he wanted to be an astronaut, I said, well, be the best one you can be.
The astronaut had come to his uncle's bar last summer, autographing pictures for relatives and new friends.
He autographed his pictures for me with love, sincerely, and that just filled my heart up. And for me to see this come about this morning, I'm just really upset.
In Southington, cousins of teacher Christa McAuliffe say this was the first time they watched intensely the liftoff of the Space Shuttle Challenger. They say it was a good feeling the first minute and 12 seconds.
I was crying because I was so happy and excited. So, oh, there she goes, you know. With our 2 youngest children, and we were just very happy. And as one was saying, there she goes to the moon, and he was clapping quickly, the whole turn of events.
Whitney Ben says her cousin would have wanted to be remembered for her desire to explore space for the children and for not being afraid to take challenges. Whitney Ben's 6-year-old son watched the liftoff. His mother later explained the disaster, but he insisted his cousin was alive and told his mother the paramedic who parachuted out of the sky was Christa McAuliffe. Michael Hill, Channel 3 Eyewitness News, Southington.
The shock of the explosion was so complete in Concord, New Hampshire, where Christa McAuliffe taught high school social studies, that psychological counselors are brought in for students who had given no thought to the possibility this could even happen. Channel 3's Jeffrey Cole was there this morning to share what was expected to be one town's triumph.
Celebration and pride turned to shock and sorrow at Concord High School today. Students and teachers gathered to watch their teacher and friend, Christa McAuliffe, become the first teacher in space. They witnessed the explosion that killed her.
I was in the cafeteria, and just everybody was, you know, real wild and excited that it was taking off. And then after they found out what the problem was, they just kind of, everybody quieted down and just waited around to see what was going to happen. And
then we heard that there had been some difficulties and everything, and that the spaceship had blew up and it had gone into pieces, and then everybody just broke down and half the cafeteria started crying, and I didn't do anything. I just stood there for a minute, and then it didn't hit me till about an hour and a half later.
Christa McAuliffe was a social studies teacher here. No one was surprised when she was chosen to ride in the Space Shuttle Challenger. Christa McAuliffe was described today here at Concord High School as the kind of teacher who taught her students to be the best they can. The teachers also say that although McAuliffe never said it, they think she was aware of the dangers involved in flying in the space shuttle. This afternoon, 8 of her colleagues gathered to remember her.
A tremendous human being who could relate to other human beings in a caring, kind, thoughtful way.
As night fell here in Concord, people from across the city gathered at local churches to remember the woman they're calling the chosen one, Christa McAuliffe.
When she boarded that space shuttle this morning, a part of each and every one of us also boarded that space shuttle.
Mourners at St. John's Church were told Christa McAuliffe still walks among them, but this time in spirit. Jeffrey Cole, Channel 3 Eyewitness News, Concord, New Hampshire.
Well, tonight the nation is mourning the astronaut deaths, asking why it had to happen, and many are turning to prayer for the strength to understand. Boston's Archbishop Cardinal Bernard Law traveled to Framingham tonight, the parish of Christa McAuliffe's family, for a special mass. He prayed for the strength to continue the living faith and the ideals that she and the others so beautifully exemplified. The Cardinal also mentioned astronaut Ron McNair, who went to MIT, and Gregory Jarvis, a graduate of Northeastern University. Don.
A special service was also held tonight in Naugatuck, Connecticut at St. Vincent Ferrer Catholic Church, a memorial service with Father Ed Nadolny presiding. Channel 3's Bertha Coombs was there and files this NightBEAT report.
They had no especial personal ties to the Shuttle Challenger crew, but like many across the country, parishioners at St. Vincent Ferrer Church in Naugatuck felt the need to mourn tonight.
These weren't just 7 astronauts. These were people that we fell in love with as they continued to prepare for one of many journeys. And it just didn't hit 7 people. It just didn't hit these families that were watching in awe and then in horror. It hit every one of us.
Father Ed Nadolny organized the impromptu service.
And it was obvious tonight everybody had a need to pray and cry together because it was a member of our family that went to heaven today.
The service was held to mourn the loss of all 7 crew members, but for many it was clearly the loss of teacher Christa McAuliffe, which made the reality of today's tragedy hit home.
Well, you put yourself in the parents' places, the children's. We all lost, everybody lost.
That today we found that in science, as in life, there's 3 steps forward and 1 step backwards, and this was certainly a step backwards for mankind.
It's really something you expect that's going to come off well, and when something like this happens, it touches home to everybody.
I heard it before lunchtime, and everybody just stopped working. It was a great sadness. They were all heroes, very brave people, too.
The space program, I believe, is going to go on. It's got to go on now because of them, because of what they did. They gave their lives. We've got to keep going.
In Naugatuck, Bertha Coombs, Channel 3 Eyewitness News on the NightBEAT.
Tonight, several Connecticut companies are waiting to see what the NASA investigation proves. 3 of them, United Technologies, Kaman, and Ensign Bickford, are all involved in the shuttle program, especially the shuttle's propulsion system, which in the past has worked flawlessly. We get more on this end of the story from our business editor, Jim Weisfich.
Liftoff, and Connecticut's corporations immediately play a major role. The 2 booster rockets providing the main thrust are manufactured by United Technologies' Norden Systems. Much of the work is contracted out, but the company says it does make the nose cone and aft skirt. The shuttle rockets are powered by fuel from the main tank. Baffles inside that tank prevent the fuel from shifting back and forth during liftoff. They are made by the Kaman Corporation in Bloomfield. At separation on a normal flight, the separation motors are also manufactured by United Technologies. The detonating fuse that carries the order is made by the Ensign Bickford Company in Simsbury. United Technologies Booster Production Company also recovers the booster rockets after they separate and fall into the sea. They then return them to the facility and refurbish them. In 1984, Norden won a major $270 million shuttle support contract as well. In fact, more than 50% of Norden's sales in 1984 resulted from booster and shuttle support contracts, about $350 million worth.
No doubt it'll be months before we know if any of Connecticut's corporations were involved in today's tragedy. For the moment, though, all of those corporations are remaining silent. I'm Jim Weisfich, Channel 3 Eyewitness News on the NightBEAT.
Channel 3 team coverage tonight takes us to the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. The museum is a memorial to those who give their lives to air and space. Washington Bureau reporter Sean Briggs sampling reaction there tonight for this report via News Satellite 3.
The crowd gathered not at the model of the space shuttle, but a television screen in front of it. Some had not heard the news until they came here to the Air and Space Museum.
Shocked, just terribly shocked, because we've taken these space trips so for granted.
Paul Bowles made a special trip to leave flowers.
I feel very badly about everything that happened today. I was really shocked at what happened. And I felt I had to express it somehow.
France also has a space program, Yves Janin tells us. At his home in Paris, he's certain his friends are sad.
We think it's a very safe engine, and we are very surprised.
The tragedy prompted Christine Krebs to buy a shuttle pin.
I was shocked and surprised, and I'm praying they don't close the space program down because of it.
And prompted an Air Force cadet to remind us.
The astronauts there, and certainly pilots in any service, you don't expect this to happen, but you know it's possible. It's a reality of what you're doing.
By tomorrow, the museum director says a small memorial, a picture, will be added to the exhibit.
We knew them personally, and they're all such outstanding individuals. Every one of them is a fine individual, a fine human being, and the loss is great.
But in fact, this Air and Space Museum exists as a memorial, as the dedication plaque says, to those who have devoted their lives to the exploration of air and space. In Washington, Sean Briggs, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
There's more coming up on the Night Beat, including late word on our local weather forecast.
Hilton tonight has the outlook for the week ahead when Eyewitness News continues on the Night Beat.